I'm Anna, and this is my video response to two articles that I read this week. One was called Darkness Too Visible by Meghan Gurdon, and the other is called Why the Best Kids Books Are Written in Blood by Sherman Alexie. So I read the first one, Darkness Too Visible, and it was interesting. I didn't completely agree with everything that Gurdon said. But anyway, she discussed that nowadays there's so much violence in young adult novels, and not just violence. I don't really mean, just like blood and gory and everything. By violence, I mean the issues that young adult novels talk about are too heavy and too adult. And these issues are rape and suicide and depression and cutting and abuse. And these issues don't are just seem to be too old for teenagers and young adults. So she tried to argue that young adult novels have changed, and they just expose young adults to too much too soon. And I don't agree with that, because I mean, being a teenager not too long ago, you actually do go through these issues. You don't go through all these issues, hopefully, but teenagers experience these things, and you're a young adult means you're actually a young adult, and these are adult issues, and you go through them at a very young age. And I think if you don't think that they happen, I think you're living under a rock. And I think I think parents often try and shelter their kids from these issues, but I think that only just makes it worse. Because if you don't know, you don't know about these issues, you're just gonna want to try them out more, probably, if you're not informed about them. So if you want to find out more about them by reading, all the better, because you're also developing as a reader by reading about these issues. And Gurdon also thinks that reading about these issues in young adult novels, some kids will want to try them out. Like if it's cutting or if it's drugs or something, they're gonna want to model the behavior of characters in the book. But I think that can happen occasionally, but I think more often what's gonna happen is that kids who are going through these really tough issues will relate to a character, and if they have no one else to talk to, they're going to relate to a character in a story, and feel their pain, feel their sadness, and get help from that, and kind of be saved from that. So I think it less frequently happens that kids see characters do bad things in novels and try and model it, and I think more often what happens is young adults relate to characters through a story and speak to them through the text. So that's what I thought about that. And then that kind of leads us into the next article by Sherman Alexie. Alexie talked about how he spoke at this graduation for an alternative high school, where all the kids there went through or overcame some kind of hardship, whether it was being pregnant in high school and still getting your degree, or having a learning disability, or being raped, or attempting suicide. And he explained that many of these kids came up to him after the graduation and thanked him for his story, his book that he wrote, and said they really related to it, and what he wrote about it, because he wrote about some really tough issues, and said that they maybe would not have gotten through their hardships if it wouldn't have been for that book. And I think that's really special. And Alexie also talked about how he still gets mailed to this day from young adults thanking him for writing that book, because they relate to him in the book and what he wrote about in his words. And I think that's special because Alexie says a quote that I liked. It said, "Teenagers are sad and lonely and angry, or enraged, but they read books basically to be saved." And I completely agree with that, because I think being a teenager is really tough. It's a really tough time. You don't really want to talk to anybody. you can't talk to anybody, you feel like you can't talk to anybody. But if you can read a novel and relate to the character in it, or any kind of story, any of the story in it, then that's great, because you can, you're going through a hard time, and so is the character in the book. They know exactly what you're going through, and you don't have to say anything, but you can experience it through literature, and I think that's awesome. So, so that's what I thought about both those articles.